Well, we now welcome Paul Yombo to the program, like I lightly announced earlier on. Hello, Paul, and welcome to the program.
Hello, Gladys. Thank you for having me.
Now, like we just listened to that report, throughout his presidency, Idriss Deby Itno faced resistance in the form of coup attempts or rebel activities that eventually saw his end in the battlefield, which is also true to his legacy as the Chadian military strongman, and that he was to the African continent, especially the Sahel region and the international community. So what legacy is Deby leaving behind?
Well, I think the international newscasts about Deby's death have abundantly spoken about what his main heritage is to his successors, and to the African continent. Deby was known as the gendarme of the Sahel. So this for a couple of reasons. First of all, as it was correctly said in the paper that we just saw, Deby himself was a military officer that rose to power as a very young colonel. He was a part of the coup against Hissène Habré in 1983, and later he himself succeeded to Hissène Habré. And because of his strong take on certain ethnic and domestic governance issues, he is known as a strong military man. That's domestically. But on the foreign policy front, President Deby has been extremely active in the fight against terrorism. That is Boko Haram, that is Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, that is the National Movement for the Liberation of the Azawad. There are tens and tens of terrorist extremist groups that President Deby has consistently fought against. And in addition to, and exactly like you said, Deby himself has faced a series of rebellions throughout his mandate. The last one was in 2019, where it was the French military that bombarded the strategic rebel positions that helped him to maintain power. So his presidency has been an extremely troubled presidency, where the main challenge for him was maintaining peace and stability in Chad and in the Sahel region. And that is to the detriment of other issues such as nation building and good governance.
So now, without wasting time, the army appointed his son, 37-year-old Mohamed Idriss Deby, who you can call him Kaka, as Chad's interim president. Is this constitutionally correct, given that the leader of the National Assembly was supposed to be the one leading Chad now?
Well, as you just said, constitutionally, the successor to the president of Chad was the president of the National Assembly. But the Transitory Military Council suspended the constitution and decided to put in place, to institute itself as the governing body in Chad for 18 months. And then once Deby's son, Mohamed Kaka, took power, his first decision was to dissolve the Senate and the National Assembly. And this is the beginning of a transitory order where the constitutional institutions are not functioning normally. The president of the National Assembly indicated that he was in agreement with the decision, but it's a bit, we can't really take that as a serious affirmation, because he said it after the decision was already announced. So it's a suspension of the constitutional order, but it's a suspension of the constitutional order that's in conformity with the power relation that we can observe on the ground. The president of the National Assembly isn't a strong figure in the Chadian national political infrastructure. The political infrastructure in Chad is held by military men, generals, colonels, captains that are all over the state apparatus and that do more than just supply security. Chad has a highly militarized political structure where military men are also the main holders of foreign licenses in the mining industry, where they're the main investors in the real estate market, where they are also the main businessmen of the country. And so the military men are at the same time military men, at the same time politicians, and at the same time businessmen.
So do you envisage any military or civilian rule after the 18 months that have been given for the interim period to new elections? Do you envisage any civilian rule?
The truth is, since independence, Chad has never known civilian rule. You can call maybe Deby civilian rule, but he was a military man, and he portrayed himself as a military man. In fact, the title that he held at his death was a military title and not a civilian title. So, in addition to his title of president. So the Chadian infrastructure is organized in such a way that it's extremely difficult for somebody that doesn't have an extremely strong roots inside the military to hold the apparatus. So to be quite frank, I'd be very surprised if after these 18 months a non-military man succeeded to the late president's son, provided he himself finishes the 18 months.
What about Mohamed Kaka? What do you expect him to do within this 18 months?
Well, Mohamed Kaka was in charge of the private security, the private presidential guard. And as the leader of the private presidential guard, he is known for a certain number of feats. One of the least glorious feats was the invasion of one of the opposition leaders' his private property, his house, and the assassination of the opposition leader's mother and youngest daughter. So Kaka has been known for his brutal measures, for his brutal tactics. Now that he's in charge of the Republic of Chad, he will have more eyes of the international community on him, and the domestic opponents, people like Moussa Sansara, will probably be more critical of him, and we hope that this will make him, let's say, change his manners in managing public affairs in Chad. In addition to that, Kaka has never been extremely talkative in the public eye. He hasn't granted any major interviews to international organs or to domestic organs. So we don't know much about what his ideology for Chad is. What we do know is that he has a military upbringing. He made his classes in the military. He's a Général de Corps d'Armée, which is the highest military rank before the one that the late president had. So Kaka is known as a hot-headed military man with little respect for human rights. Is this the profile that is needed to maintain Chad in peace? Maybe now. But afterwards, he will have to become a diplomat to continue being at the forefront of the scene as his father was. He will have to become a negotiator to maintain the fragile ethnic peace that exists within the Chadian society. He will have to become a state builder, because the main problem Chad has is the absence of the state. If there are so many rebel groups that are successful in entering the territory and crossing the territory going to N'Djamena, it's because there's an absence of the state all around the country, and that the state therefore doesn't know what's going on the territory and doesn't have sufficient actors on the local ground to intervene in such situations. So Kaka will have to transform himself to be able to succeed, let's say, in a good manner to his father.
Now, in a statement, the rebel group FACT, which is the Front for Change and Concord in Chad, said Chad is not a monarchy. Now, what do we know about this group?
Well, we know very, very little, in fact, about the truth of the group. What we do know is that on the 11th of April, the last 11th of April, thousands of military men left Libya and entered Chad through the northwest region through a town known as Mora. That's 300 kilometers away from N'Djamena. And we know that they have had a steady progression, that they are well armed, trained, equipped, and that they have a coherent strategy. What we also know is that before and after the death of President Deby, some high-ranking military officials in the official Chadian government structure announced their support in favor of FACT. This means that FACT isn't only an insurgent exterior group, but it's in fact a schism within the political structure of Chad. That's something which is very important. The second point is that the level of armament that these people have indicates that they have strong supports from outside. Rumors had it that it was Russia. Other rumors had it that there were other Western powers present.
So do you think they have any relationship, given that they come from Libya too, do you think they have any relationship with Khalifa Haftar?
Well, Khalifa Haftar is a ruler of part of Libya, because Libya itself has at least 4 governments. But the part of Libya from which they came from is effectively ruled by Khalifa Haftar. But when we say ruled is in a very large sense here, because it's also a no man's land, Libya, where there's no state, it's a failed state, and Haftar has limited control outside of Khartoum. So it's extremely complicated, the situation in Chad right now, because the FACT group are an unknown equation. We don't know how long they'll be able to resist Deby's army right now, New Deby, because he's also called Idriss Deby. Yeah. We don't know how long they'll be able to resist their army. We don't know what their exterior supports are. We don't know how many they are. So if it wasn't for France's aerial support, maybe the president's son wouldn't have been president anymore. Today, in the same communique they issued, where they were denouncing the succession of Deby by Deby, they equally said that it's thanks to France's intervention that they aren't fully capable to operate, and that France tried to assassinate the president of the FACT. So the situation in Chad right now is an extremely tenuous situation, where there are deep divisions within the Chadian society, political society, economic society. There are ethnic divisions, there are religious divisions that are not sufficiently talked about. And so we will need a lot of proactiveness and openness for change for the situation to come back to normal.
What about the fight for stability in the Sahel region, knowing that Chad played a key role with French troops and other neighboring countries? What's their future? Well,
indeed, Chad is present has been present in the Barkhane and Serval military operations led by France. And the difficulty with this kind of operation is that the Western soldiers that come from France don't know the African field. They don't know the grounds. That's why the Chadian soldiers have been so instrumental. That's the first point. Second point is that they aren't used to the climate. And the Chadian soldiers are very used to the climate, because they that's where they live, it's their habitat. And right now, the issue is that Chad has such internal difficulties that it's incapable of projecting itself outside for the moment, which the natural consequence is that there's a power void that's created in the Sahel region, the absence of the Chadian forces, or the lack of means that the Chadian forces might face in the upcoming weeks, will have as consequence a power void. And the power void will probably lead to imbalances within the power relation that existed hitherto. And right now, it might slip in the favor of the terrorist groups, and that is what major foreign powers and domestic powers are afraid of. More crucially, maybe, there could be an alliance of different terrorist groups present in the Sahel. The different terrorist groups present in the Sahel are known to have soldiers within FACT. That has been established by different media outlets. And we have seen, very disturbingly, the presence of groups that have not cooperated before together. Former allies of Mokhtar Ben-Mokhtar are present in the FACT. Former allies of the ASEAN group are present in FACT. And these are two different factions that hated each other. And so if they decided to cooperate within FACT, it means that they are eyeing something bigger than simply making Deby, than taking Chad. And that's what's very frightening.
Well, Paul Yombo, international relations expert, thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take a breather and we'll be right back.